public, who are you going to believe in? Generally speaking, you don't necessarily get direct lies that contradict statements of facts. You get more like lies of omission, right? So it's interesting in this case where essentially both positions seemingly cannot coexist. And there is a bit of an implication that somebody in this situation is lying. The question is who, how, to what extent, if that is true. Curiously, Independent Senator Hazel Thompson called on the government to apologize to the Auditor General because she's just trying to do her job to the best of her ability. And I think, ultimately speaking, there is also the second issue. The first issue is what actually happened. The second issue is, and this will be the long-term precedent set with regards to the Independent Auditor General, to what degree she's supposed to be independent. Apparently, I guess, is up for debate. How is her job supposed to function with regards to her working relationships with the Cabinet and with the Minister of Finance? Now, the Attorney General has said that the Auditor General, yes, the AG said that the other AG got bad legal advice. But again, I do have to wonder, reading his comments, it doesn't seem that he's offering a lot of legal, technical justification for the statements he made. He says, how do you verify? You don't lock yourself away, you don't lock your doors, right? Because claims have been made that she instructed her people, or her people were instructed, maybe not by her, maybe by her legal team, to not accept documentation from the Ministry of Finance. Again, that's claims coming from the Ministry of Finance. But even if that was true, we have not necessarily heard why they would have been wrong to do so. I'm not saying that they were right to do so. I'm just saying one would think that the Attorney General, Senior Counsel, not to be confused with Junior Counsel Reginald Amor, that existed for all but one testimony in the past period of him on the other side of a case that had interest to the state. He is a technocrat, first, and a politician, second. We know this because his lack of political acumen, to say the least, and his apparent political discomfort. I would have expected him to give us more of a technical answer as opposed to a political one, because he's basically saying it was their duty, right, in order to utilize the correct documentation to provide accurate accounts for the state. The question is, the Auditor General is basically questioning, well, what is the correct financials for the state? And according to her letter, our interpretation is she is not satisfied with the explanation and the lack of written documentation of the explanation provided, hence part of the reason why she's not satisfied. Again, the minister is saying that is not entirely the truth. And the minister has gone on to say that this is an error with regards to the new tax refund system. It caused revenue to be underrepresented by $2.6 billion. So again, the Auditor General, I believe, was the one that revealed the $3.37+ billion figure, of which about 700 or so million is completely unaccounted for by any explanation from the Ministry of Finance. So again, what's going on there? But the minister said, government's 2023 revenue was underrepresented by $2.6 billion because essentially the system might have misplaced a decimal point. They had a refund check for VAT of $2.6 billion. That, as a single check, is obviously a mistake So as a VAT refund, that means that the VAT revenue would have been approximately 2.6 billion, or maybe that's where how the math of the error works out to explain the discrepancy between the figure from the Auditor General and the Minister. One of the things that I find interesting is he was saying the process includes that they compile the information, send it to the Auditor General, and then his people check the information after it was sent. And because the error was detected during an examination of the account submitted by the Finance Ministry's Budget Division in February. So they sent the figures in January, end of January, then they checked the figures. The ministry decided we'll check the figures after the fact. And I'm just questioning, like, why would you do it that way? You're going to send it to someone who you may or may not have to legally send it by January, and then for whatever reason, you are not confident in the figures, so you have to check it after the fact. Then want to question why the Auditor General has questions. Hold on. You mean to tell me you didn't send me the correct things? The process, it seems as though perhaps people are not necessarily proficient in the process based on my initial read of things. And I can't fault the Auditor General for then saying, hold on. Your processes is all out of whack. You need, if you want to make this correction of an error, you need to do it properly. Otherwise, I can't just accept this because you say so, which leads me back to the Attorney General and my disappointment in his communication of this whole matter. He is using closing argument style language, political style language, and not necessarily technical burden of proof meeting style of language, if that makes sense. Because he's basically saying, well, she's wrong. Okay, I need a little bit more onto the why. I don't doubt that you're a smart, learned, capable, professional, senior counsel, except for that one time when you told a court that you were junior counsel in a matter where you, timeline-wise, doesn't suggest that you weren't actually junior counsel. And therein lies the issue. Let's not forget the press conference about the disappeared file. And then when the file was found, we didn't necessarily get an explanation to give us a conclusion to that whole drama, which, of course, one of the consequences was a $20 million settlement. So let's not forget that. We got the press conference to more or less kind of push aside guilt away from his office. Cool, but we didn't necessarily get all the answers. So when you take that situation and you take the Miami perjury question, I'll leave it as that. I can't take what you say at face value, Attorney General. You don't have that cachet. You just don't, not as a politician. And unfortunately, unless not all of your words have been reported, you're coming off as a politician, which I find it very strange because you do not seem to be a politician. You seem to be a technocrat, and I'm not really getting any technical expertise here. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, I've gone on this topic quite a bit, but I find this to be very alarming because we literally have a case where there's implication that either the Minister of Finance or the Auditor General is lying, or the legal representation of the Auditor General is lying. Meanwhile, we have a lot of questions with the independence of the Auditor General, as well as the proficiency and processes of the various aspects of the Ministry of Finance. And if we really want to speculate down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, then we could ask more alarming questions, more sensationalized questions. How many more errors do we get? How many more decimal points are misplaced in the various arms of the Ministry of Finance and the public sector and financial sector of the country? Right? Because that's one of the things that is kind of hidden in all of this. They're admitting it, but they're not necessarily addressing it. How do you let these errors happen? This is just the only one that we know of. Let's take a break. When we come back, we continue the daily review. Stay tuned. It's Tuckerman and WSN, the content capital. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WSN Show. Michael Small. And the last topic, of course, was what unfolded later on, the latest chapters of the Auditor General versus the government, Minister of Finance. We haven't heard, of course, all of Cabinet speak on this, mainly the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance. However, there was another aspect of this situation because, of course, the opposition should bring to light important issues. And of course, in the process, you use that to browbeat the government and to win political points. I get that. But technically speaking, you can't just let things like this happen and not ask questions and try to bring a proper solution for the people of Trinidad and Tobago as the opposition. Now, that led to the fact that the government had a vote to extend the time period, right? By which they would have to try and fix this mess. Of course, Senator Wade Mark's statements notwithstanding, I don't know how that is going to play out. The opposition has decided to utilize this as ammunition, and the opposition leader, as well as MP Dr. Munal Runilal, as ammunition, not just against the government, oh no, but also against the 5 dissidents within their own party, claiming that at the vote last Friday, they had an opportunity to defeat the government on a very important motion that sought an extension of time for the Auditor General to prepare the report. And Dr. Munilal is stating that the government, had they been defeated on that motion, that could well have led to the collapse of the government and a snap election called. It was a critical motion. And had the government been defeated, the government could have collapsed because the government, I believe, passed the motion with just 19 members in the House. And the opposition was missing 5 of its members, which could have caused the vote to be in deadlock. Although I do remember a similar thing happened in the Senate, and the president of the Senate, the presiding officer, broke the deadlock. So I don't know, does the Speaker of the House not potentially have that same? But regardless, a lot of hay has been made, right? Now, the various members, including MP Anita Hayes, have said, well, look, we had various reasons of being absent, point number 1. One had a graduation to go to. She herself said she had personal reasons, etc., which doesn't seem all that acceptable, because all 5 of you had various personal reasons to be absent from Parliament during a parliamentary debate. That is, on principle, not a good look. Not a good look. In fact, a couple of political analysts did more or less bring up that point. And they're basically thinking, look, you could use this as ammunition against these 5 dissidents, right? The thing is, the problem is, first of all, I have seen debates in Parliament where the leader of the opposition was not present for. And I do believe there have been votes where members of the opposition has not been present for. And MP Anita Hayes is basically saying, and rightfully so, well, we could go back into the records and check on these things. We could check on these things. I have seen walkouts where the leader of the opposition was not there. She left it to others to kind of carry the day. When the Brent Thomas matter was in Parliament at the time, I can't remember if the opposition leader was there. She might have been there for parts, but in other parts I don't think she was. Others had to kind of lead the way, so to speak, for better or worse, for better and worse. I have a specific example. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not just speaking rubbish. So there is that. Then there's also the fact, as MP Anita Hayes points out, well, they only needed a simple majority, which they technically have. They just didn't have all their members present. But if there were 19 members of the opposition present, is it difficult to think, well, couldn't the government just, I don't know, call their absent members to get it done, if it was that important? And then back to opposition MP Ruda Munilal. I understand that this is a matter of grave importance. I just don't necessarily see how it's going to topple the government. Granted, if the government played their cards extremely poorly, this situation should probably topple the government, right? Boris Johnson's government got toppled because of a party. Yes, during COVID, but still, it was a party. Let's just remember that. That's how things should be. But let's not forget, in Trinidad and Tobago, this administration has been able to rehire a fired MP/minister more than once, the same individual, right? We've had other controversial questions of which the opposition have not necessarily been able to hit home and bring us, the public, an acceptable resolution, at least with regards to doing the work on their end. Whether we actually get the results or not is different. The AV drilling matter comes to mind. That's just been allowed to die a natural death in the news cycle. As a population, we have no resolution to that. No thanks to the opposition, I would argue in this case, right? More importantly, Section 34 did not topple your government. All of the ministers being fired did not topple your government. Oh, sorry, that is to say the People's Partnership Administration. Apparently, the political game in Trinidad and Tobago is a bit more durable than in the UK. and is a bit more resilient when it comes to surviving controversy. Nixon probably could have stayed in power if Watergate was a local scandal here in TNT and not in the United States way back when. At least now, maybe under the Manning Silver Fox era, things might have been a little bit different. But now, now it just seems I just need to say enough to get the public off my back, let it die in a news cycle, because something else will happen that's controversial, that'll distract people, and we'll just overwhelm them with bad news. And the opposition does not help to refocus the population with regards to the critical important matters. Rather, their tactics indirectly helps the government because they themselves just try to speak on everything and add to the noise, and we don't actually sort out the issues, focus on what's important to try to fix any one single thing. Think about it. Think about it. I'm not saying the government is right. I'm not saying the government should not fall for something like this. I'm just saying that the political environment in which we operate, I don't really think things work that way. It has proven to be quite the opposite. All right. Quickly, I wanted to point this out, just to mention this. The police service have finished their investigation, and it was spoken on by the Minister of National Security, I believe it was last week, last week Friday, with regards to because this is something that is important to me. It might not be important to everybody. There was an article in the daily newspapers, but I don't know if it was focused enough for my taste on the perspective they were taking. Deaths of innocent children within our borders. I say it that way because this is the case of the baby that was shot and killed on an illegal vessel, bringing in illegal immigrants. I get that, the justification being the boat was about to ram us, so we opened fire on them in an act of somewhat self-defense. Anyway, the minister has reported that the police finished their investigation late last year, I believe it was October. The file has been sent to the DPP. I mean, it took a couple of years, but I am happy to hear that this case has not died and has become a cool case. I don't know if we're really going to get a resolution to this. All I know is that we live in a world where various services of the Ministry of National Security will tell us that an inmate died of a heart attack despite the glaring obvious signs of blunt force trauma and polytrauma all around his body. So what am I supposed to think in this matter? The police, I believe, did their job, but this is just the first step, latest step in the criminal justice system. So with regards to transparency and benefit of the doubt, cases like this matter. We don't necessarily need to see convictions, but we need to see a trial. We need to see a good amount of evidence. We need to get a good explanation for what happened. If there's proclamations of innocence, fine, but we need to know how we get to that point. I don't think it serves the public to kind of hear, well, not enough evidence, can't prosecute, or not enough evidence, so not guilty, even if we do prosecute. Getting off on not enough evidence happens, I would argue, it's going to happen, but it seemingly happens very often on these high-profile cases. Isn't that strange? That's just might be my perception. All right. There's still ongoing things with regards to the health situation. It's not a health crisis yet, but I do think it is negatively affecting perceptions of healthcare. Some of it could be for the better, some of it could be for the worse, but we're out of time, so we'll end the daily review there. Let's take a break. When we come back, we have the ASP with us today. He couldn't come yesterday, but we have him here today. Stay tuned to talk about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, we'll be right back after this.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Seth. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the corresponding banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful. The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
no. Let's go to the last part.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back. This is Talking About WESN, Sean Michael Small with ASP, Ashraf Ali, TTPS Media Ambassador. Good morning, sir. glad that you could still join us this week.
It's a pleasure to always be here.
Now, of course, I in the last segment you might have seen I was speaking about the matter with the investigation into the shooting death of a baby out at sea by the Coast Guard. The TTPS took a 2-year-long investigation, not necessarily upset about that because that might be quick for all I know with regards to how these things could go. But it's been sent to the DPP's office, and basically it's out of the police's hands at this point, right? More or less the officers have done their part. It's safe to assume there should be enough evidence to at least consider prosecution. That's why they sent it to the DPP's office. And
I'm glad you bring that up because it more or less opens the door for me for the discussion with respect to our topic for today. Right? And that is one of the aspects that the public needs to be appraised about in terms of the type of investigation. Not the contents of the investigation, the nature of the investigation, but some updates on it.
Yes.
Right? So yes, it's a fact that the investigation was, after the investigation is completed, it is sent to the DPP. However, what was not mentioned is that during the process of the investigation, there would also be visits to the DPP on a periodical thing, because having collated some evidence initially, you would have to go to the DPP. The DPP would review, give certain directives to continue the investigation, to add to the strength of the case, and that's a back and forth consultation. So when we believe that it's only now that we go to the DPP, it does not happen that way. The investigators are also required to visit the DPP and have some consultation, and the office of the DPP would guide the matter way. Right now, the investigation with the bodies that the body that was found in the Valsine area, you would have realized that the officers went to the DPP. The DPP gave instructions to release the individuals and continue investigation. That is the nature of the consultation with the DPP. The office of the DPP, I should say.
Because basically he's telling you, listen, this is what the case looks like. My office is the one that's more or less going to have to take it to trial. So this is what we're going to need. Otherwise, if we don't have X, Y, and Z, we're kind of wasting everybody's time here. And that doesn't make sense, especially when we have a system that's so slow. We don't want to bog down things that are going to go nowhere.
And that is really the way these type of matters go. Sometimes it's a bit tiring to some of the victims or persons who are involved in it. They believe that the slow pace of the investigation and justice, in their opinion, is such, and they are only looking at the end product or the end result where someone has gone is charged for a matter. Yes, that may be one aspect of it, but there's need for the engagement. And one of the things is that the only way that we will be able to reach these stages in a timely manner or probably in a shorter space of time is when we get the support from the public to comfort and give information and give the information and support the police in the manner in which we need to do these type of investigations. So it does not matter if it's a public interest matter or just a or I wouldn't say simple or normal investigation into a road traffic accident where you need the public to come and give some information as to the incident, or if it's a homicide or any crime that we have. There is consultation, whether you have to consult with the Deputy Commissioner and the Officer DPP or through our legal department to ensure that we have the best case and we cover all the ground before we go through the court.
Now, the thing is, our system moves slowly. That's not to say that a lot of these cases are supposed to be very fast.
No,
right?
It is not.
They might be faster than how most of our cases goes, but they ain't necessarily going to be like 2 days and answers are within your hands. And I do wonder if to some extent, because you pointed this out, it's not about giving out or revealing details of the case, but certain updates at a reasonable time period to give the public, updates on how things are going, what can be given, I think could potentially also help, because part of the problem is the public at times gets nothing. So we're kind of left to wonder what's going on.
And that is why our area, the area of conversation today is to show gratitude towards persons like yourself and other media houses where WESN and other platforms have accepted the police communication, our media ambassadors, where we can come before you all and you ask the questions and we will be able to give some updates if we can and let the public, the wider public knows know what is taking place in the context of these investigations. That is a support mechanism in a way we can also reach a different type of public or a wider public, and we are getting the support. So we do in fact get information coming in from this program. When we review the program, some of our callers would make suggestions. Right. Some of those suggestions is in fact being looked at and see how it's going to be applicable. So when you believe that you all the public out there is not making an input, or they believe that we are not listening, it is not true. We are listening. You may find it is not the action of because sometimes everybody wants their input for them to see the significant. But when we collate the information and we hear what is taking place and we have a general consensus of what to do, we look at it from a holistic point of view and bring the information out.
I think it's similar to what the Secretary of Health said in Tobago. It's like, yes, we would like to have a more expanded level 3 NICU in Tobago. We only have a level 2, but it still has to be feasible, right? The police would love to go with every suggestion that has merit, but then they also have to ask, is it feasible for us to institute this now or even at all when considered against other things? I would imagine it's just one of those things that you don't want to hear, but the practical reality is money, resources, time is not unlimited.
And that is true. And many of persons out there in the media does not know the extent of our community outreach, stakeholder engagements. They don't know the extent. Yeah. We have our extent reaches as far as, well, we know about the schools. We have station council meetings where we meet key stakeholders within our community who meets with the division, the station commanders and share particular point of views and assist in certain areas. Simple things like where the public has an issue with, let's say, street lights or the environment which they live. Because of their stakeholder engagement, we, from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, can engage with other stakeholders and address the concerns that the community has and get some action taken place through our interministerial engagements. Right? Town meetings, when we have town meetings, a lot of persons come to town meetings and express their concerns and the issues towards the police. We sit there and we listen. Sometimes we feel that we are just being bashed on a regular basis, but at the end of the day, we love to hear your point of view and the way that we can improve our services. Sometimes it is not within our immediate responsibility, but because we have an extensive stakeholder engagement and we engage with several interministerial and organizations, we can share that concern also with them and get some redress. One of the
things I want to point out, because I could see where it could be frustrating, because it seems to me the TTPS is trying to swim uphill against the current, because it's a couple of things. One of the issues is some of the community outreach that you do, I think, would make news. We watch cable news, right? So in America, local Miami news, New York news, whatever. You know, the so-and-so officer met with people to discuss XYZ, and it could be a minor story, but it'll make the news. Part of the problem in TNT is we have so much big controversial topics that these minor things might not make it. And then the other thing is, people, when they speak about the TTPS's customer service, it's almost like if they kind of forget, oh, wait, hold on. That's not limited to the TTPS. It's not a TTPS problem. It's a Trinbagonian problem of which the TTPS comes from us. And to some extent, you all are having to kind of try to swim against the cultural norms and fight against expectations, but also train something that it is not necessarily like ingrained in us to do or be. I know it sounds bad, but at the end of the day, the Secretary of Tourism, I believe, called out Tobago for more or less the same thing. And like I said before, that's not just limited to Tobago. Yes, there are people that are good at customer service in the country. Don't get me wrong. It's just that even the hospital situation with the NICU in Port of Spain in general, one of the things that's coming out of that is basically implications that the various healthcare workers forget about their ability to do the medical aspects of the job. The customer service aspects of the job, I think, is one of the questions that we haven't necessarily touched on. It's been talked about, circled around. It hasn't necessarily been addressed. It's a societal thing. And the Media Ambassador program, I think, is actually interesting because thinking about it, I constantly say, well, this is what I see other jurisdictions do with public communication. One of the things I don't actually necessarily see is a Media Ambassador program. So it's kind of interesting that you have something that's a bit unique that, and potentially slightly innovative, right? Having a spokesperson isn't, but you have the program to the extent it is in our environment might be. So while other things that are not being done that I wish are done are not yet on the table, I have a little bit more of appreciation for this program because I've said it before and I'll say it again, and it's probably one of the best public relations programs in the country. And you might say that it's not a good one, and I'm saying, however you decided if it's good, bad, otherwise, it's still one of the better ones that I have seen, and I appreciate all of you all for it.
Well, thanks for that, and I'm sure all my other Media Ambassador colleagues will be appreciative of it, and the Office of the Commissioner of Police and the entire executive will be appreciative of the fact that the level of support that we continue to get from the media. I mean, we love the hard questions. We love the difficult questions.
Really?
Yes, we love the difficult questions. We love those questions because at the end of the day, it keeps us in check. It keeps us accountable because we have to be accountable to the public, and we are not afraid to be put in those positions, as you call it, sometimes the hot seat, because we have to answer those questions. And if we can answer those questions in the manner that we need to, we will. There are certain questions that the media ambassadors and certain issues that we will not touch on. That is left to the executive,
right? And
we respect, and that is where there is a respect for that, and we would cordially inform our presenters that is not for us to treat with on this because that's an executive conversation, and that is how it's supposed to be.
That might be one of the interesting aspects of the Media Ambassador program. Usually a spokesperson is senior enough to speak about certain things, unless on a technical level they can't as a matter of procedure. And oftentimes there would be a member of any sort of executive, could be the sheriff himself of a sheriff's department, commissioner or chief of police of a police department, or somebody right underneath him, his PR person, his main spokesperson, whereas you all are field officers not directly tied to the executive at all. And it gives us a different perspective, which is again why I say it's somewhat unique. It's almost like if we're not going to send a VP of the bank to speak on behalf of the bank, we're going to send a senior loans officer to speak on behalf of the bank.
And it's unique because you get a different perspective on different platforms. And WSN has a unique set of callers, a viewership that is unique from other platforms. So we get an opportunity to get the views from different platforms, get the views from different presenters, how they bring information across. And that is now dealt with from a corporate communication perspective. When you go on our social media platform that corporate communication manages, you would see the amount of information that is posted of good things that we have been doing and certain things. When persons go on our social media platform and indicate they have challenges or some issue, our corporate communication makes sure that they get the information and respond to those persons on social media. It's all about extending our engagement, right? Even yesterday, you would not be aware or may not have been aware that there was the Port of Spain Division, Community Policing, had an outreach program in the Brian Arapramad talking about domestic violence, and yesterday. Right. It has not made media attention, but it's something that our community policing sections do in fact engage on many platforms to do a lot of engagements with schools and the general public. We go from the hard approaches to the soft approaches, and it's on a regular basis.
I will say this though, there's two things. One, there's still aspects of communication that I wish would happen. That is to say, more procedural updates on the states of certain cases and so on when possible. So again, that the public's expectations could be properly managed. It's one of those things that sounds bad, but it's actually a very practical and important thing. Even businesses need to manage the expectations of its customers with proper communication. And I don't necessarily see a difference because, again, you don't want people to panic. You don't want people to have unreasonable demands or expectations of the service, right? So they do need to be managed with more pertinent communication from the executive. But then also I do think, while I appreciate all that's been published and done by the police, to some extent I do feel that there's room, practical, available room to improve what's already being done more effectively without necessarily having to go into anything to make big changes in how it's being done. Just to be a bit more, maybe to have the scale widened or to be a bit more thorough or to just change the procedures. Because it is unfortunate that the news cycle wouldn't cover some of these things, but in the age of social media, to some extent, I'm not saying that the police should be in the business of media, but social media allows for more independent channels, and while people do obviously engage the police's social media, I don't think enough of the public engages the various arms that is pertinent to them, and in a time like this, the police would be one of it. And they should engage more. Now, it's not enough to just tell the public once, engage more. Check up the TTPS Facebook page, but rather what is the TTPS social media corporate communications team doing to try to extend their reach, so to speak?
So, well, there's a lot of things that has been done on those platforms. All right? A lot of information is put onto the platforms. All these, all our media ambassadors come and share particular safety tips in relation to the environment or probably a particular time in the year or in the months that certain things are happening. We do, in fact, come out and say there are certain things that we continuously repeat when it comes to issues related to children, road traffic incidents, traffic safety on the streets. So we continue to repeat certain things on a regular basis, right? Yes, there's always areas of improvement, but when you look at it from a different perspective, is that the more collaboration that we encourage and persons are accepting, as how you just mentioned, the Media Ambassadors program, it's unique. And if you view it in that manner and understand that this is an opportunity also for both sides to get relevant and pertinent information, it's something that we're looking at the same time.
So what you're saying is, maybe like how you have the PTA to support schools, maybe there needs to be a civilian network to support police communication, maybe?
There's a possibility that I would say, because remember, our corporate communication department, there are civilian expertise there who are trained in media, right?
I was thinking more not of technical experts, but rather willing volunteers who would be part of a group whose main focus is just to try to help disseminate information as much as possible.
It can be something. It's something I believe that our corporate communication department is in fact listening at this point in time.
Okay.
It's an opportunity like any other stakeholder engagements where you have specialists, just like our legal clinic that we have, where we have lawyers, practicing lawyers who come and provide their services free of charge to give legal advice on certain areas that it may better, and persons accept it much more when they hear, when they realize it's a profession, a person within that profession who's giving the advice other than a police officer giving that advice. So there's a person is a legal officer, is a lawyer, recognized, don't have to be recognized in any particular thing, but they know there's a lawyer, and that's the individual who's sharing information. It may be in the same category at the same time where you have persons from different in the media fraternity who is willing to volunteer some of their services, and I believe if those persons are willing, they could probably communicate with the corporate communication department and share with them what they believe could be a different outscope.
I'm actually also just thinking, standard civilians, you know, not just sharing, but perhaps trying to have more of a semi-formal presence with regards to disseminating.
Well, then
because
we have a lot of
it's similar in concept, right? It's not just the police are kind of like a faceless corporate police announcement on their social page, but rather now individuals who we might consider friends, family, somebody we trust, public figures who are all kind of banding together to.
This
is what we saw on the police Facebook page. Did you see it? Double check this because it might be maybe, you know, a wanted poster or calls for witnesses for a bad traffic accident and a timely responses. I remember I had a friend who went missing. Ironically, there was a SRP with the same name that went missing. But the point is, when we saw the Facebook, you know, notices, it kind of like, ooh, we started to disseminate it amongst ourselves, and it got the ball rolling to try to, you know, help out.
Well, it is an opportunity because and I continue to mention with the aspect of social media, there's a lot of persons who go into the area who are content providers. They look at social media platforms and they are specialized in social media. So they may bring a different perspective how the police service can utilize social media more effectively. So there's that's not a closed door or open and shut door as the case may be. There's a conversation that I believe could be held, and we will be willing to accept any stakeholders. It don't have to, who's willing to come forth and share some information, give us some, put the information out there, have a discussion with our corporate communication because they are the ones who manage our information content. Yeah. Right, for this dissemination both internally and externally. So I think that's an opportunity for many, and sometimes there might be a lot of young persons who are new and have a new idea in terms of this aspect of it.
All right, enough from us. Thanks for that. I mean, who knows? Maybe something could be born from this that would be very valuable and could get the ball rolling with better communication and transparency in other aspects of the country. Meanwhile, let's open the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewer, where you could have your say. I know I have yet to speak about the Paho investigation and some of the concerns there, or the Southwest Regional Health Authority and some of the concerns there, and some of the growing concerns in North Central and Northwest. But you can call in and ask those questions if it matters to you, and I'll give a quick answer on that. And of course, the media ambassador is here. If you have any technical questions with regards to police procedure, ongoing confusion with regards to what you should or should not be doing, what you could or could not be doing, you could feel free to call in and ask about that. And of course, the political drama, you could call in and have your say as well. I see that Mr. Diego Martin found that being last was not necessarily the best position yesterday. It was a little too late, so he called in first again today. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Well, good morning, and opening the bowling. Good morning, Mr. Small, and to the Honorable, I'm calling him Honorable Superintendent. And I'm going to ask him the first question. An observation I made recently, a couple of, last week or so, where the TTPS has an issue with their promotion. And this is where I find it strange that they had a lot of photo ops with a lot of police finding a dog. The same time, there was a serious issue with 3 girls went missing. The father took them from 3 others. The father had, this is what I'm hearing, an issue with the court. And I saw the Rescue and Hunters Association taking a lead on that. I want to know, has TTPS delegated its responsibility to the Hunters Association to basically, I say, lead with respect to rescue and kidnapping and things like that? All right, the second question, I'm going back. I will listen to you of it. I'm going directly to the AG and the AG office, and I'm hoping that they could respond in a sensible manner, rational manner to me. I'm hearing that he's saying the AG, the Auditor General, has gotten bad legal advice.
Mm-hmm.
This issue to me is going to court because we had 5 imitation MPs who basically could have positioned themselves for this to go in a different direction. Now, if this goes to court, you know, I have to pay as a taxpayer. So it's another layer of tax because of the, I'm using the word errant behavior of some MPs. Now, in order for the AG, the Attorney General, to help me and insist me not paying more tax, I want him to go to court to litigate this matter. I don't want no junior, senior counsel. Don't retrain no Casey from abroad. Don't bring in Nelson. I want him to be mano with Freedom Law, most likely, or the UNC people in court to save me as a taxpayer. That's my interest. Because all I'm seeing in all of this is what we call creative accounting. And in some organization, when an accountant is in a position too long, when a new one comes in, you see all the misgiving. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put out an idea that I have seen. I have seen the Minister of Finance have never taken vacation since he took office. That tells me something. And you have a new Auditor General now. Previously, you had somebody else. Is this new Auditor General picking up issues with the previous years in accounting? You know, as an accountant, you could do creative accounting to hide things, and we still have not gotten a clear indication where all the COVID money has gone, what we got basically from external donors. Go and have a nice morning.
That's a good point, caller. I like that last point there about the new Auditor General not necessarily operating the same way. And I could see a world where, with the old Auditor General, it might have been just assumed, yeah, we know you, we know what this is, we don't need to go through all the trouble. But she's new, and to some extent, one would expect for her, when you're new, you don't know necessarily the rules of the game, to phrase it in a very bad way. And it's not that you want to do illegal things, but what are the lines that you operate, the boundaries? You don't know necessarily where they are. So you could actually be a bit stricter on everything because you don't want to risk moving outside of the lines. And then as you get more comfortable with your role, again, it's not I'm saying that they're going to do things illegally. You know, there's a world where within the lines, you just know what the limits are, because at times, for practicality's sake, you don't always just adhere rigidly to everything once you have the legal freedom to do so. Because in government, if you don't have the legal freedom, regardless of your good intentions, then we have a problem. I don't know if you want to answer his first question about the missing dog. I saw that criticism somewhere on social media. It's just one of those things. I don't know if you have a response to that. It's not something that I necessarily...
Social media is there's a lot of things on social media. One of the areas that I want to address is that the issue with the search and rescue. Yeah. Right? No, the search and rescue, that group, Hunter Search and Rescue, has not been delegated, quote unquote, the premier search and rescue team or unit, right? And there's not that we delegate anything at all. They assist, and sometimes even parents and family members engage this private entity, right, for assistance. We do not have control over this private entity if they choose to assist in the recovery and the searching of family members, right? What we do is, if it is that it is an issue of a kidnapping, that's a responsibility of Trinidad Tobago Police Service, and that's a crime that we are investigating. They don't investigate those type of crimes.
I'll just say this, even if everything is operating as it should be, you know there are going to be people who might not be willing to speak to the police because of various other concerns that just won't be with, and I'm not talking about illegal concerns, I'm talking about I don't want to be involved. If I talk to the police, then this thing escalates. What if I'm wrong, etc., etc. I heard a rumor. If I tell that to police now, it might cause so-and-so to lose their kids, but it's easier to tell somebody that's not a police officer because they don't have to do the things that when the police hears things, the police have to do certain things when they get certain allegations, when certain ball starts rolling. You don't have the right to stop it, you know, even if it might not seem within the best interest of the people involved. That's just how the law works.
Yes, so true.
So we have a caller from San Fernando that's been waiting. I'm so sorry, San Fernando. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning, morning.
Yes, Pierre.
Good morning, sir.
Glad to see that you're showing some gratitude today. Yes, Pierre, I want to say something about they talk about social media. There seems to be for me there's a trend. I notice it. There are some social media. Well, let me rephrase that. There are some YouTubers. Let me be specific. That have this tendency that what they do is that they go into countries into what we would refer to in Trinidad and Tobago as hotspot areas, to get I suppose they want to boost their numbers because it's a job for them. But it gives negative publicity to the crime. And recently they have had several of them come to Trinidad and Tobago. There's one presently in Trinidad and Tobago. That chap have a channel called Christmas List, and he has been down to Duncan Street in what they call now 7 territory.
Oh, we're a trend now.
Yes, there was another one recently that was up in went to 6 territory, and then there's another one that was here, an Israeli. And they give negative publicity to the country. And I have an issue with that. My thing is, these fellas, we need to have our law enforcement and our immigration up on top of the game that they can, when these people come to your country to enter, you refuse them entry. Point blank, you refuse them entry. Because all they come to produce negative publicity. Now that being said, let me say, because I have to say that the TTPS is a gap. I see it as a gap, which I think you all need to work on. There's a gap between the TTPS prosecutors and the TTPS legal section and the DPP's office. And similarly, because we have cases where recently here with that Hannah material thing where the DPP said he needed more information before he could charge or whatever. So I think what has to happen is a closer working relationship, or with the DPP's office and the police prosecution section. I don't know how to put it, but there seems that there needs to be a closer collaboration to close the gap a little bit. There's just some constructive criticism.
I hear you, and if you could, I could answer you directly with respect to that. When it comes to the social media, thanks for the call. When it comes to social media bloggers that enter a country, sometimes we really don't know whether or not what they intend to do. They do in fact come to the country, visitors, and the immigration cannot deny them unless there's some legal grounds to deny somebody entering the country. We have to look at it on both sides. In one aspect of it, they choose locations that they put themselves at risk, and sometimes they put a negative spin on the country. Only today I saw another one on social media, which I am of the opinion it could be a positive, depending on how it is. Right. That even the blogger was indicating that there's a lot of negatives about Trinidad and Tobago, right? And he's here to disprove that, right, and give a different perspective in it, and that he is traversing from the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, and thus far, all his engagements so far has been a positive, where he has met a lot of strangers on the streets and they have been offered and has been very nice to him thus far. That gives us a different point of view as opposed to some of the other bloggers. So we have to be balanced. And I'm saying that if we continue to say that we are, everything is all nice, and it's one side of it.
Yeah.
Tourism in any country has both its positive and negative aspect of it, and it's what we choose to listen to and how we choose to follow it. That individual has his followers, and I'm free. They are free to deal with it from that perspective. But we have to look at it as a balance. And right?
The thing is, yes, it has to be balanced. One of the interesting things is I saw one of those videos. I didn't realize it was a trend that now a lot of YouTubers are doing, but I saw one of those videos. And to some extent, ironically, the individuals in those videos kind of came off sympathetic or presented themselves in a very positive light, which one could argue you make criminals are kind of presenting themselves in a positive light is not a good thing. But there was also other people involved, right? Down to the individuals on the promenade who said, don't go there, don't go there. It's like, they didn't necessarily come off as bad. They came off to me as real. And it leads me to another point, but I'll just continue on with this. The thing is, not having good legal grounds for barring them entry would then potentially cause YouTubers to, cry censorship, and that would also potentially make us look very bad, like we're trying to cover it up, as you're saying. You don't want to just say everything is fine when everything is not fine. But I understand the sentiment, and I think that something does need to be done to kind of ensure that it's fine in the initial stages if the infamy happens, right? Because then people are more aware of Trinidad and Tobago, and they no longer say what part of Jamaica is that in. But of course, that has its limits. We can't just let that be the be-all and end-all of what the rest of the world thinks about us that doesn't have any other channel. So then perhaps it's not just to try to prevent them, but rather to engage with them. Okay, we know. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because if you try to encourage a narrative from these YouTubers, they might also cry censorship. So it's a delicate thing, right? Mm-hmm. But the flip side, of course, is if they make outrageous claims, we could challenge them. Our YouTubers, our citizens in the comment section, right? We could challenge them. I think generally speaking on YouTube, that tends to work out better. Not saying it's guaranteed to work out better, but that tends to work out better. What I have seen with various controversial topics, claims about censorship and claims of over-exaggeration on issues. And the thing is, if you kind of play the game the right way, it puts these YouTubers in a precarious position, because if they double down and they are irresponsible, and that eventually will come out to light if you engage with them enough, and that could ruin their entire YouTube career. I think San Fernando is back to agree or disagree. Caller.
Morning, Sean. I'm calling back to explain something to you.
Yeah.
When I said immigration, right, and I specifically said, I specifically pointed to immigration. Why I did that is because vloggers, these YouTubers, it's a job they come in here to do.
Yeah.
Because this is right. For you to come to Trinidad and Tobago to do a job, you have to get a work permit, okay? This is not vacation. They come to do a... No, John, we're getting technical here with it. It is a job. Their job is to provide content for financial gain. That is what they do. And if it is that you're coming to Trinidad and Tobago, to do a job, then you need to get a work permit, and it was from that aspect I was coming from when I talked about immigration, right? That's all I want to clarify.
Okay. No, I'm not too sure. The problem is content creation is, I think, in a gray area around the world.
No, even though someone is entering the country for work permit, I'm simply saying that it's a very touching area that I don't want to step into the immigration area to when they can deny or not. I understand the context in which the caller is indicating that it can bring us in a bad light, and they may put themselves also at risk in
Yes.
going into certain areas
Yes.
that could become negative to us. So,
Yes.
so I will take that, and I understand that. That's the reality of it.
No, but it
Right,
also
but-
brings up the question, I think, of the status of this type of work.
And it is.
It's just that I don't think most of the world has caught up to this type of work. Privately, yes, you know, Twitch, YouTube, various platforms, they've monetized it, advertisers advertise on it, streamers and YouTubers have been on Times Square billboards, I get that. Legally, I'm not sure if even the American government or the Korean government, maybe the Korean government has. I'm not sure if the American government has caught up to some of these things.
But it just simply means that, based on what the caller is indicating, it's a reality of of today.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
So that's,
Caller,
that's
I'm not saying you're wrong in principle. I'm saying you're quite right. This is something that probably should be settled sooner rather than later. Because look at what happened with the shark attack, right? To some extent, the THA took on some sort of responsibility as long as they were within Tobago. I believe they were flown out out of the country last night or whatever. But to some extent now, with regards to the responsibility of the country, if you're kind of coming in this quasi-legal status there, you know, it does potentially expose us, especially when they are taking risks and officially we are not necessarily doing anything. Because usually what happens, the American government will at the very least tell its citizens, please don't go here. So if you go there, you can't then say, well, they didn't tell us not to go there. They knew we should have gone there, but they didn't tell us not to go there. And our government does not necessarily have any formal things to not just protect them from that eventuality, but also for the sake of these, you know, YouTubers. At some point, somebody might do the wrong thing and get themselves in trouble, and then we're going to say, oh, shucks, how unfortunate. And the rest of you will vilify us for it, and we would like to avoid that if possible. So it's a fair point you made, caller from San Fernando, but I think with regards to the showing the country in the negative light aspect of it, that is to say, the content specifically, I will just say, more often than not, I have seen it where engagement, even if it is engagement to disprove, tends to work better than trying to prevent or block. Because just the climate politically, internationally that we live in, and with regards to the internet specifically, and censorship, especially on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, it's going to trigger a lot of people and it will open a different kind of worms, and there might be further misrepresentations of the country and further wrong assumptions being made and misperceptions being made, potentially, depending on if it's done that way. I've seen it played out like that. What you're trying to hide is basically the question.
Yeah.
So we kind of, unfortunately, we kind of have to try to avoid that up front. I don't think there's much value, but the legal status of streamers and video creators, at the end of the day, you're right, it should be answered. And you know what? If they can't legally come in once that question is answered, well, that's unfortunate for them. No. I think more or less this is the end of the show. So I want to thank ASPRLE for coming in there, joining me today. Not your usual day, busy man, busy yesterday, but still made the time.
I want to reverse that now. I want to thank you of this program, WSN, Sean Michael Small. I remember his name.
First time he said my full name, I think.
Right, Sean Michael Small, WSN, and all, and the radio station, the TV station itself, and all your sister stations. For all those social media platforms, all those radio stations, the acceptance of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service social media ambassadors, from the commissioner and the entire executive. We want to say thanks for giving us this opportunity, because it's a unique opportunity for us to reach some persons that we cannot reach on a regular basis and get information and insight from other persons. So thanks very much. Sean?
You're welcome. I'll just say this. Next time maybe use Media House, because calling us a radio station is like calling a Korean Japanese. You know, you just don't want to do it. You just don't want to do it.
He had to, so let me make it
one job.
Let me make it absolutely clear now. I apologize on behalf of myself, and I will not call it a radio station anymore.
Yes.
I just, sometimes it is just coming.
To be fair, you're not the only one. You're not the only one.
So the TV station, web TV, right, web platform. So you know, so it's a unique platform. Yeah?
Yes,
it's a unique
folks,
platform.
Not all Asians look alike. Not all Africans look alike. Not all media platforms are alike. Some are radio, some are TV. But like we are all human, we are all media. Now, with that said, important discussions. Hopefully, we see things moving forward. The TTPS has made some good strides in communications. We would like to see more. We would like to see more out of the rest of the country. How do we do so? Well, we, to some extent, have to do our parts to make it so, to help the police, to help the wider society. So have a good day today. It is a good one to have a good one. As my course always says, remember your allegiance first and foremost to the Republic. We will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
geste or a gesture to help the planet, and zero déchet or no waste. Now, on top of these new words, the dictionary has also a list of famous people that it adds to every year. And surprisingly, some of the pretty obvious ones were not on Larousse's list yet, such as the singers Beyoncé and the French star Mylène Farmer. They've added also this year actor Omar Sy and footballer Antoine Griezmann and Iranian journalist Narges Mohammadi. They were also added. But when you add, you also have to remove. The dictionary says that they actually do a major clean out every 10 to 20 years for the words that are no longer relevant, such as Minitel ist. This is someone who uses the Minitel, or the French precursor to the web, which of course no longer exists.
R.I.P. Minitel. Well, Beyoncé must be feeling very relieved. Thank you so much, Solange, for that. Well, coming up next, the green transition has been on the table for years now, but without major public investment, it will not happen. That's the message from the co-chair of the Greens in the European Parliament. Philippe Lambert talks to our Europe editor, Armand Georgian, and rubbishes the claim made by EU leaders that the private sector can play a big role in boosting the Green Deal and the European economy in general. Well, that's next in our Talking Europe programme.
Hello, you're watching Talking Europe. My guest today is almost an EU institution in his own right. For 10 years, Philippe Lambert has co-chaired the group of the Greens here in the European Parliament, and he's been an MEP for Belgium in 3 legislatures since 2009. His passion for green issues spans more than 30 years and will no doubt continue once he leaves this Parliament in the next few months. A prolific commentator on European affairs, he recently accused EU policymakers of sleepwalking towards economic and environmental suicide. Philippe Lambert's welcome to the programme.
A pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Let's talk about the opinion polls for the Greens across the EU. You're projected to have quite a big drop in the number of seats in this election, and yet at the same time, climate change is such a huge issue. Why is that paradox?
Well, there may be several reasons, but first, the game is not over until the end time has been whistled. So
till June the 9th.
Well, you know, most voters decide very late in their thinking process. Some of them decide in the last days, the last hours, the last minutes before voting. So, well, we have to keep fighting. But what may the reasons be? I do believe that people are not stupid, and they know that, well, what the Greens propose is a quite substantial change, especially in our economic model. And change is, well, making people afraid. I think that's an aversion to change that I understand, but we can't afford not to change. That's one aspect. Second, to be honest, and well, I don't want to blame others, but we have been basically the scapegoat of everything that goes wrong. Best example was the farmers' revolt, where actually their revolt was caused by an economic model that is crushing them, but it was all the fault of the Greens. And that came, of course, from the right wing, but it was echoed by many media, saying, yeah, it's the European Green Deal. While the European Green Deal has yet to reach the countryside. I mean, in no legislative text did we really touch agriculture with the European Green Deal. But that kind of fallacy is, of course, easy to use in a, well, I would say, a post-truth world, and we see a lot of that. But then again, we can blame the context, we can blame the competition, but our first responsibility is to be good and to deliver our best game ever. And I would say we have 6 weeks to demonstrate that indeed we are both a credible and a desirable choice. So up to us.
On the farming question, I did recently talk to young farmers, and they were very pleased that some of the environmental obligations on them under the Common Agricultural Policy were being removed, the so-called GAEC. They're actually feeling that the removal of obligations is a good thing for them.
Well, of course, when basically you can barely make any profit from your basic activity, any constraint that disappears gives you a little breathing space, but that doesn't fix the problem, frankly. The fact is that farmers, especially family farmers, see their buying price is imposed by their suppliers and their selling price is imposed by their buyers, their customers. That means that they have almost zero margin, and this is not fixed by these, the removal of the few green constraints of the Common Agricultural Policy. So that won't be a solution as long as the European Union continues favoring industrial farming and export-oriented farming. And that is still the reality today. You know that 80% of the CAP money is going to 20% of the farms. I mean, that in itself tells you that something is deeply wrong.
Let's go back to the polls we mentioned at the beginning. We've seen not just a slump in the projections for the Green vote, and I know you're saying it's not over till it's over. We've also seen a rise in, let's say, sovereignist or Eurosceptic political forces. How do you expect to position yourself in the next parliament? What's your gut feeling? Do you think you'll be with the opposition or part of a majority?
Well, I would say that we have a certain sense of gravity of the situation the European Union finds itself in. And that sense of responsibility calls us to really look at options that would make a stable pro-European majority in the European Parliament. Well, the presence of the Greens in the European Council is limited. In the Parliament, maybe we can indeed weigh enough, and that's my key point to European voters. If you want the Green Deal to carry on, you have to strengthen the Greens. And indeed, as you said earlier, many Europeans still put climate and the environment very in their top 3 preoccupations. So indeed, there's a point to be made. And there, of course, our condition to support a majority in the European Parliament will be not just defending the acquis of the European Green Deal. First, we have to make everything that has been adopted work, and for that you need investment, not just regulation. And second, there's many areas that have been left alone by the Green Deal, starting with agriculture, as I said earlier. So what we will want is a deepening and a widening of the European Green Deal, but on that condition, we would be ready to support a pro-European majority in the European Parliament. And absolutely, if the alternative is a majority that is supported by the far right, as a Democrat, I do not have a slightest hesitation that the Greens need to be there when they are needed.
How do you rate the Green legacy of this 5-year legislature? Because we've seen quite a lot of measures pass in the last couple of months and just in the last few days on, you know, the reuse of recycling, on air quality and so forth. Is it a good record?
Well, compared with my first 2 terms in the Parliament, it's day and night. I mean, you know, when Jean-Claude Juncker, von der Leyen's predecessor, left, he gave a speech here in Strasbourg where he spoke for 25 minutes about his legacy as President of the European Commission. Can you imagine that the word climate did not come up once, the word environment not once? And remember, the Paris Climate Conference took place under his watch, not worth a mention. And here, lo and behold, you have a Commission President that launches the Green Deal, which arguably is not, well, has shortcomings, obviously, but no one can claim that nothing was done, right? And indeed, it's really remarkable that the European Green Deal was launched and majorities were found up until the last plenary to adopt a number of these texts. But we see that they are fragile. They are fragile. And this is where European voters need to make a decision. Do they want to continue on that path and indeed make sure that we are not doing anything stupid economically or socially? Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. But is it really an option to stop not even halfway? No, of course not. And therefore, my message to them is reinforce us Greens, because that's the only way to guarantee the outcome of the Green Deal. And if I may, we have a proof of what's happening when the Greens are not around the table. 27 heads of states and government, the European Council, they meet, not a Green there, not one, right? Strategic agenda, the European Green Deal is not even mentioned. So without Greens, forget it.
You mentioned earlier the investment that will be needed to make these changes in society and changes in the economy. And you've said that it's, I'm slightly paraphrasing what you said, but that it's naive for European leaders to believe that this will come from private investment, because private investment has to be profitable, otherwise private companies are not going to invest.
Quite obviously.
But why do EU leaders keep saying private
because
investment?
They don't want to face up their own contradictions. That is the problem. They've been preaching for decades this neoliberal ideology that actually the state is a factor of inefficiency in the market, so the smaller the state, the better it is. Well, the fact is that every serious study, every serious economist is telling you without a very strong public investment, the Green Deal will not happen. And even in areas where you might think, well, it has to be private, you know, let's talk about building renovation. Most buildings are privately owned, so you might say that's for private investment to fund it. Yeah, but that's a bit too easy. Actually, most homeowners do not have spare capital available to pay for refurbishment of their houses, which means that actually if you really want the renovation wave for a category of households without public investment, it won't happen. I can afford to renovate my home, but many can't. And if they can't, you need public support. Likewise, in basic industries, steel companies. I mean, because of our mercantilist economic policy, actually, we have been accepting basic industrial products like steel and cement from outside of the European Union. I talked recently with the boss of a major European steel company. What they are telling me is that we are burning cash. We are burning cash at a fast rate, so we are making losses. In other terms, we want to go for the transition. We want to replace blast furnaces by direct reduction ovens using green hydrogen. But the unit cost of that at the moment, as we are building the prototypes, is 2 billion a piece. I mean, we don't have the money, so without public support won't happen. So when Draghi says that most of the investment has to come from the private sector, yes, in theory, Mario, but in practice, no, it's less simple than that.
One other area I wanted to touch on, you and I talked a lot about the Qatargate scandal when it broke, this alleged influence buying by Qatar here in the European Parliament. We now have the so-called Russiagate affair and even alleged Chinese influence buying. We don't have time to get into details, but do you think, what's the legacy going to be of this Parliament in terms of the integrity of its members and how transparent their activities have been to the general public?
Well, there's still room for improvement, I would say. If we had our way, we would have an external ethics body that would really have teeth. We won't have that. We will have a sort of advisory body. But I would say that most of what has been happening is already illegal. I mean, the suitcases of money of Qatar were illegal, right? So you don't need new laws to make something illegal more illegal, right? Same thing, spying is illegal. So this is about intelligence services doing their part. We are not an intelligence service, we are a legislating body, and the public security services doing their work. So yes, we need to step up the efforts because it is obvious that the interest of autocracies around the world is to weaken the European Union. And indeed, they will use national populists as conduits to do that. Of course, because nationalists are in to break the European unity. So of course they are objective allies of Putin, of Xi Jinping and others.
We'll have to end it there. We've run out of time, but thank you so much for being my guest. Philippe Lamberts, head of the Greens in the European Parliament for 10 years, but now stepping down from that role. You've been watching Talking Europe.
Women celebrating Mass. Can women be ordained priests? While popes change, rules on Catholic women priests stay the same.
So I think the Vatican is afraid of, first of all, admitting that they've been wrong for centuries to deny women the equal place in the Catholic Church.
In 2002, bishops broke canon law by ordaining women.
Las mujeres debemos estar presentes en todos los aspectos de la sociedad.
Tant que tout le monde n'aura pas accès à cette ordination, je ne me tairai pas.
Will women priests one day become the new norm? Hear their stories in Reporters on France 24.
Don't miss Prime News Paris with Thomas Burgess-Watson. Get a better knowledge and understanding of current affairs with our experts and reporters around the world.
I'll bring you Prime News Paris every evening right here on France 24.
Stay in touch on Night Watch with Alexander Rocotte and James Mulholland. Get all the facts and insights on recent world events.
The news never sleeps. Join us live on France 24.
Catch up with the latest news in World Roundup with Mark Owen. Get all the facts and insights on recent world events.
That's World Roundup with me, Mark Owen, on France 24.
Join us on France 24 for a crucial and exciting election season. In June of this year, citizens from the EU's 27 member states will be asked to choose the next European Parliament made up of 720 MEPs. France 24's Talking Europe will bring you a series of special programs. We'll look at the political powerhouses in the EU and also talk about groups of countries and regions. We'll have debates for you with MEPs from different political parties, and we'll look at the key issues of our day that cut across national borders. Talking Europe takes you to the heart of the EU election campaign.
Talking Europe on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Good day and welcome to a new episode of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. I am your host, Rondell Dono, attorney at law. Once again, I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to bring the law and you. Of course, you can stream us on WESN platforms as well as traditional media and our podcast, Strictly Legal with Rondell Dono. Today, we are going to go into the medical legal type of program today, where we are going to speak about the legal implications of medical malpractice, patient rights and responsibility. And I have none other than Mr. Robert Otway, who is a very experienced attorney at law, having been called to the bar in Trinidad and Tobago on July 1977. I believe he started practicing law in 1977. Of course, he has been partner in Lex Caribbean, Hammersmith & Co., where he headed the civil litigation department. In 95, he would have set up his own practice, which he has been carrying under the name of Otway & Associates up to today, continuing the work of medical legal claims, which includes, including against doctors and private institutions, and also representing public hospitals through the relevant regional health authorities. Mr. Otway continues to work, although he's currently, as he said, in semi-retirement in Mexico. So that's why we'll be joining him via Zoom today. And of course, I'm very honored to have him as a guest specifically to speak about the whole issue of medical negligence. So I will bring him on now. Good day. Well, it's still morning. It's about 2 hours behind, as you said. Mr. Otway, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Rondell. Pleasure to be here. One slight correction. The first name is Robin.
Robin. Why am I saying Robert? Robin. Robin, yes, my apologies. I'm so sorry. Yes,
That's
Robin,
all right.
Robin Otway. Yes. So how are you?
I'm going fine, thanks. Enjoying life in Mexico.
Nice, lovely. Yeah, the weather looks lovely over there. At
It's
least from
hot
what I'm
right now.
seeing.
It gets really hot, like 44 degrees yesterday.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. That calls for AC weather. But in any event, we are speaking about medical malpractice, particularly in our jurisdiction, Trinidad and Tobago, as well. I mean, of course, this type of law, area of law, is also widely known in the Caribbean and the world. So let's just get into what are the elements, or rather, the legal definition of medical negligence.
Could I first start with the general definition of negligence,
Sure.
which is a very wide application? could apply to a motor car accident, somebody falling in a hole along a street and claiming that a borough council or governmental authority is responsible, somebody hitting another person. It's very wide-ranging, and it's defined as the failure, this is negligence generally, to exercise the care towards others which a reasonable or prudent person would do in the same or similar circumstances, and it can consist of acts or omissions when there's a duty, where there is some duty to act, for example, to help a victim of your previous conduct. Coming now specifically to the medical legal aspect, how negligence is seen in medical negligence cases. And there are two fundamental questions to be asked there. Now, we don't have anything like what you might call a Bill of Rights for patients who may want to bring a medical legal action. So the definitions come from what we lawyers call the common law, that is, precedents of judgments delivered by the courts and which have been accepted over the years. And this one is very much the definition that is followed generally in the Commonwealth. It comes out of an English case. And the first question is, has the doctor practiced up to a standard expected of a reasonably competent medical practitioner in the particular field? The standard expected of a reasonably competent medical practitioner in the particular field. Now, I'm going to come back to the words, the particular field, in a bit.
Indeed.
The second fundamental test, when a doctor follows a particular practice, and this can apply, I think, in particular to surgery, where a particular operation is being carried out in a particular way. So the second fundamental question in terms of the practice, how the doctor does his work, has the doctor adopted a practice accepted as proper by a responsible body of medical opinion in the same field? So we come back to the word field, particular field earlier, same field. So the question there, in terms of the particular field, an example, if a general practitioner were to undertake something that was considered a specialist task, he would be judged by the standards of this specialty. If he's unable to meet those standards, then he will be held negligent for undertaking work beyond his competence. Do you think, Rondell, I've expressed that in a way that's not too sort of legalese?
Indeed. So basically we are saying that, of course, the standard of proof is what is reasonable. That is, in terms of the doctor's practice. Now, who decides what is reasonable in terms of how the doctor or how the medical institution deals with patients?
Medical legal field, it would be the courts. The courts would decide. A case in medical negligence is prepared in a particular way. It's a complex area of litigation. There are obvious cases at times. For example, there have been cases where a patient goes into surgery to have one limb, or say one leg amputated, and the doctor cuts off the wrong leg, he amputates the wrong limb. Now that's open and shut, right? Once the records are clear that the injured limb was the one to be removed and it wasn't, then that should be open and shut. But very few cases are open and shut in the medical legal field, and it boils down to the expert witness as the cases get more complicated.
Of course, and the situation that we have at hand, I mean, there's a lot of different types of cases where some form of negligence would have occurred, perceivably occurred on the doctor's part. Now, in terms of those type of cases, and of course the patient's rights, right? You know, at the end of the day, as you said, there's a standard of proof in terms of what is reasonable in your area of practice. More particularly when it comes to negligence in terms of birth of a child, and a lot of times mothers died during delivery, and then they blame the hospital for not having the proper trained personnel, or rather the equipment to deal with such complications. How does that legal challenge occur there?
Now, this is in terms of available equipment?
I mean, both in terms of, I mean, whether or not there was due care and attention in the delivery, or or in terms of a cause of action of there not being the resources that is available.
The obstetric, the gynecological field is one where there's quite a bit of litigation. One of the more common cases, which of course involves very severe damage, is cerebral palsy, a baby born with cerebral palsy, which could come out because of difficulties experienced in, as we call it, it's medically referred to, the birth canal, the process of actually the baby emerging. Sometimes damage is done, cerebral damage to the brain, and if it's very severe, the child can be born with cerebral palsy. There's another well-traveled ground of what is called pre-eclampsia, where the mother is detected or reports to her doctor, her gynecologist, that she's suffering with high blood pressure. And that requires that particular care be taken because it could lead to both mother and child, or one or the other, or both dying at on the table as delivery is taking place. So there are particular issues with gynecologists. Have I answered your question, Rhonda?
Indeed.
Availability of equipment, yes, the basic equipment. I mean, delivery is not, as it were,